We got some people joining. Welcome. For those of you that are joining us for executive functioning, we're going to give people a couple minutes just to come in and join. We've just opened up the webinar, so we want to make sure that those people get a chance to get themselves in and settled. As you're coming in, we just want to let you know that we are going to have this slide presentation available through our district website this afternoon. So there's no need to take notes or have to keep track of the websites that we offer. There's going to be some direct links that you'll be able to click on from the slideshow itself. But just let you know, that will all be available to you. As you're coming in, we also want to let you know that we are going to wrap up with some time left over, and the chat will be enabled at the end of this session so that Michael, Emily, and I can answer questions or talk with you more about some of these things or direct you back to your school site if needed. We are really excited to talk about this today, and the three of us have spent many years working with executive functioning in students. And what we really discovered is that we really need to truly think of these as skills. And skills are something that are learned and developed over time. And so when we talk about executive functioning, oftentimes we assume that our children just have these skills inherently, and they don't. And so I think when we were looking up this presentation, we referred to the Harvard Center on the Developing Child. And I think they say it best, that it's a set of skills that underlies our capacity to prioritize and to filter distractions and control our impulses so that we can be successful in our everyday lives. But as essential as they are, we aren't born with them. And as adults, we scaffold these skills for our children. Just as a scaffold supports workers while a building is being constructed, adults engage and reflect on activities to support the emergence of their skills in their children so that they can perform them on their own. And we all play a role in helping develop these skills with our children. At home, you are a vital part of that, just as we are at school. And so today we're going to talk about some of these skills that are a little bit more abstract. They're not the time management, and they're not the prioritizing and the organizing. Those are some things that you can do that are a little bit more concretized, but we're going to help give you some explicit strategies today that are more complex and abstract. And so with that, I'm going to give a moment to let our panel introduce themselves, and we will start our presentation.
All right, good morning. My name's Emily Foster, and I am a counselor from WCI. I typically have the last names L through Z, but Mr. Constantine and I work as a team, and we're there to support all Squires. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Constantine. I'm also a counselor at WCI. And like Emily said, we support all students. My caseload is normally A through K, but happy to serve all our students in Walnut Creek School District.
And I'm Dana Wagner, and I'm the counselor at Tice Creek School, which is a K-8 school. And I've had the pleasure of working with Mike and Emily for many years. And again, we're a team, and we're here to help and support you as we move through this new and interesting school year as we continue to make some changes. And so with that, we'll let Emily start our presentation.
Okay, executive functioning, the abstract skills. All right, so the first one we're learning about today is metacognition. So what is it? Knowing what you know and what you don't know. In other words, having an accurate understanding of your knowledge of any given topic or task. So why does metacognition matter? Develop an accurate learning plan. So understanding your progress and where you need to go allows you to make real-time improvements. So being honest with yourself on what you need to work on, what you need to practice, put more time into. Helps you manage time efficiently so that you know how much time you need to spend on things, and helps reduce anxiety and stress. That's a big one. So that you are able to figure out what you need to work on, and that reduces your anxiety levels. So metacognition, how can you support your children in practicing this skill? So this is a really big one. I'm sure you've heard it before, growth mindset. So learning isn't fixed. So a key element is knowing that your learning is always improving. So help your child. This is a big one we hear, or I hear, and I'm sure counselors do, and teachers hear, is I'm just bad at math. And helping your child rephrase, or it could be any subject, it doesn't have to be math, but helping your child rephrase that, in that there are some topics you just don't know yet. There are some that you do, and some that you need more practice on. So that's part of a great conversation you can have with your child. By knowing this will help you have greater confidence, take charge of your own learning, and help them identify skills to strengthen. So metacognition, I'm sure you've all heard this before. There are many different learning styles. So there's visual, auditory, verbal, physical, logical, social, and kinesthetic is another one. And I find that I am a kinesthetic learner, which means that I have to learn by doing it. So you could show me the same math problem over and over and over again, and just seeing it done isn't enough for me. I actually have to write it down. I have to work it out with the teacher, and those are the ways that I learn. So here we have included a survey that you can take with your child. It's really cool, and it helps them and you identify their learning style. You could even take it yourself. And then once you've identified their learning style, there's another article I've posted here on the link that helps you support your child depending on what their learning style is. So that's something great to use after this presentation. Okay, next topic, sustained attention. So what is sustained attention? Sustained attention is being able to focus on one person or one task for a period of time. So I know during distance learning and our thousands of Zooms, this is definitely something I think we've all had a challenge with. And so we're going to try to give you some ideas of how to help. It includes being able to pay attention even when a task is boring, or working to avoid distractions that may get in the way. So I know I have a lot of students who talk about preferred other things they'd like to be doing because they're bored. And so part of sustained attention is actually teaching your brain to focus on it as it says, even if you're bored, so that you can be successful in that subject area. So why does sustained attention matter? So as I've talked about a little bit before, these sorts of things reduce anxiety and stress. By paying attention, you feel more confident because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. If you have sustained attention in a subject, your teacher's lecturing, and you're not paying attention, and then it's time to do independent work and you realize that you weren't paying attention. So that would definitely cause some stress because you missed the lecture portion. Or if you are talking to your children and giving them instructions and things to do and they're not paying attention, then you say, okay, you got that? And then their mind is blank and they go, no, I don't. That would cause some stress. So it helps increase productivity. So if you're paying attention to a task, you get things done quicker, obviously. Gives you time for other activities that are more preferable. And this is a big one I was thinking about, is positive social skills. So this is being a good friend requires you to pay attention, being a good listener. So if you pay attention to someone when they're talking, they feel heard, they feel important. And I think that's so valuable for our children to learn because oftentimes I see at lunch, kids are on their phones, they're not even looking at each other. I don't even know if they're talking. And so sustained attention, if they can carry on a conversation, it will help them with their friendships and even further in life. Okay, so what can you do to support your child with sustained attention? So a big one is first identifying distractors. So once you've identified them, common ones, as we all know, would be the cell phone. I've already mentioned friends, noise, music, television, and so on. So once you identify the distractors, then it's kind of self-explanatory, but you need to avoid them. So I was with my brother the other night and he said, Emily, I'll hang out with you if you put your phone away. And so I put it away and he goes, no, I want it all the way in another room. And it was amazing. Knowing that my phone was in a completely different room made me so much more. I didn't need to check I probably should have, but I wasn't checking my email. I didn't hear my text message vibrating, anything. So if you can completely remove these distractors, it will really help you either pay attention when you're talking with someone or with schoolwork. Behaviors that aligned with paying attention. So I love this, and it can be really helpful and concrete to really explain what it looks like to your students. So since it's challenging to specifically define paying attention, it's important to recognize behaviors that align with paying attention. So what does it look like? So I like this: stop, look, and listen. Mrs. Wagner helped me figure that out because it's so good for little ones. So obviously, if you're paying attention, you do need to stop, right? Put the Legos down, put the phone down, whatever it is. Look. So I talked about, making eye contact with the speaker. Your body should be facing the speaker. Look, so as I've said, eye contact, and then listen. And part of listening is asking clarifying questions, repeating back what you've heard. And I like this one, thinking of like self-talk. What should I be doing right now if my mom told me or dad told me or whoever that they need to talk to me about something? The key components would be to stop, look, and listen. And that can be used in the classroom too. Okay, so strategies for keeping focused at home. So I think you can all see that pretty old looking timer down there, and I do use it with my boys, especially for cleaning things up. Anyways, it's great to have a physical timer. So number one, I should say, is ask your child to write things down. It's always nice to make sure that they are completely hearing what you're saying, and if they're writing it down, then they can reference back to it. Using a timer, I think, is great. Taking breaks. So it talks about if you take a break for 10 minutes is a little bit of a long time, but I would say 3 to 10 minutes while they're doing their homework at any point, and setting the timer for the 3 minutes so that they know when to come back and re-engage in whatever they're doing. Getting physical, stretch breaks, walking around the house, playing with a pet, getting outside, fresh air, and then of course, staying hydrated and fed are important too, to make sure that their brain is ready to roll. So those are some examples of how to keep them focused at home. All right, it's you, Mr. Constantine.
All right, I'm up. Working memory, everyone. So what is this thing we call working memory? Well, you can think of it kind of as this mental workspace, which is responsible for temporarily storing information while you're manipulating it. So it's a little different from short-term memory, where maybe you're just remembering a set of numbers. With working memory, you might need to utilize those numbers, like repeat it backwards. Or, for example, they give you on the slide, the example is maybe in math, you're getting a set of numbers that you have to remember, like 15, 23, and 6, and you have to add 2 of the numbers and then subtract the 6. So that's really what you're doing when you're using your working memory. It's kind of like you have a temporary sticky note on your brain that holds new information in place so you can work with it. I know I try that at the grocery store sometimes. My wife tells me to get some stuff, and I go to the grocery store and I have that temporary sticky note in my brain, and then all of a sudden I go to the candy aisle and I see people there and I forget. So now it's very helpful that I actually use a real sticky note while I have that temporary sticky note available. But attention plays a big role in that. Obviously, the more that you are focused on the task at hand, you're going to be able to work and manipulate through that information. Next slide. So why is it important? It helps you to be clear on directions. Obviously, if you are focusing and you can remember what the directions are, you're limiting your time trying to realize what you're supposed to be doing at that time. And it helps you finish a task quicker. When you can work on different tasks, especially like math problems you can do in your head, you're going to finish it quicker. The problem that could get you into, or students into trouble is, with Common Core standards, we want to know how you get there. We want to know what's going on in your brain and tell that story and show us how you get there. So it's important, of course, if you can use your working memory to solve problems, but you might have to show it as well. And then it also definitely helps with better performance at academic tasks, especially reading comprehension. As you're working with reading and you're really doing some active reading where you're asking questions, taking notes, annotating, that's going to really help with reading comprehension, as well as math skills and anything that may involve multi-steps. It's really important, and working memory helps with that. And it has helps with increased attention. So as you're paying attention to what's at hand and you're using your working memory, you're going to have less ability to be distracted by other things because you're manipulating that information in your head. Next slide, please. So it's kind of similar to a lot of the things that you were hearing in the previous slides, where it coincides with your sustained attention, right? And also metacognition. If you understand all the steps that you need to do and how you need to complete them, then you're using your working memory and metacognition. So here's some steps that may be helpful for you at home to work with your kids, working on visualization skills, and have them encourage them to, one thing that I think is like a good task that I like to do sometimes, my kids aren't quite there yet, but I used to do, is kind of remember, how do your kids know how to get to school? Have them explain it to you, how to get to school. They may not know the streets. They might just know landmarks. They might not even know anything at all. I think it's really amazing. My wife and I, we grew up in the same town, and I got my license when I was 16. So I had it in high school. So I drove around a lot and during school, but then she didn't get her license till she went away to college. So when we go back home, a lot of times, like, she's driving, she has no idea where we are in our own town. And I'm so amazed. And it's because she wasn't really using her working memory, and it never instilled in her long-term memory because she didn't have to pay attention where I did. So really try to do some visual skills with your child. And have your child teach you some of those skills. Maybe they have a favorite recipe. Have them teach you the step-by-steps of how to make their favorite food. Or their video games. They spend hours on a video game. How do they play this game? Have them teach you, explain it, and see how they can really start visualizing and teaching you those skills. Number 3 is try games that use visual memory, any kind of like concentration memory game. There's so many free apps now that you can also get that are work on memorization and concentration, and that really helps you with that visualization skill. Play cards, fun games. I love it anyways. It's great. You play Crazy Eights, Uno. You're really learning the rules, and you're using your working memory because you're manipulating, while you're remembering the rules, you're thinking of strategies. I know when I go to the casino and play poker, I tell my wife, I'm just sharpening my working memory skills. So she's totally on board with it, right? Using statistics and higher level thinking. Yeah, I don't think she likes it. Number 5, encourage active reading. That's no reason why they tell you to highlight, to take notes, because it really helps you solidify the information that you're going to work with and answer questions later on. That's why annotating is really important. But also encourage them to do some predictive thinking when they're reading, and encourage questions. And chunk information into smaller bites. So if you can, example, your social security number that has hyphens on it, because it kind of helps us to chunk those numbers, or your phone number helps us chunk things in small bites so it's more easy to remember and work with. Also, using graphic organizers is a really big key. I did leave a link on resources to graphic organizers, which hopefully can be helpful. I remember when I was a kid, we used to use the old hamburger for writing a paragraph, the hamburger chart, and it really helped me to, gather my thoughts and chunk things. So you just have to request permission to my files, and I will do that. And hopefully you guys can use those, and they'll be helpful. Number 7, multi-sensory. Definitely having things heard and seeing it at the same time really helps solidify working memory, and also gets it into long-term memory. I know that was something that my dad was not good at when I was growing up. I would work with him in the summers, and he was more of a verbal instruction kind of guy. Also, it didn't help that English was a second language, so we would be doing electrical work. He's an electrical contractor, and I remember I'd be like, he's on the ladder and he's telling me, "Go get the thing." I said, "What thing?" "The thing, by the thing." Excuse me? What? I don't understand. What's the thing? And then he gets all frustrated, and he gets down the ladder and he shows me where the thing is, which is, I guess, the hammer and the nails, and it's by the thing, by the toolbox. So he needed to do that multi-sensory approach and really show me where those things are. So then now I know. And help make connections. So definitely, as you really help your child from associating, that they connect with whatever they're really learning, that makes it, meaningful to them. Like they give the example of the rainbow, the Roy G. Biv. I know for math, we use PEMDAS. For the order of operations, I don't know if guys, Columbus, I always remember the Columbus. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So different things that just helps us solidify and really kind of visualize and remember things. And then you can close out of that, please, Emily. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is just some helpful reminders that maybe you can give your kids at home to work on when it comes to school, is to make sure that they are writing down, taking pictures of their homework assignments and the due dates and listing the steps, asking for clarification if they don't understand, and obviously participating. You're going to be using your working memory when you're participating, and reviewing your checklists. Keep a backpack and folder organized. Like I said, having graphic organized is a very important thing, and showing up to any type of student aid or support that they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, I think that means it comes to me at this point in time. So I'm going to start talking today about the skill of self-regulation, which is oftentimes referred to as self-control, but it really is a lot more than that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I have to kind of preface this skill with the fact that this is a big one. And it's one that we're practicing for many years over many different phases of our development. And even into adulthood, we're still working on these things. And so the one thing I really want to say before we start talking about all these things is that, as hard as it is as a parent, and the three of us are all parents, it is one of those things where self-regulation really requires patience and intention when you're working on this. And we know we can't do this all day long. As parents, we understand that you have all kinds of other things that you're doing, but even just taking some time and even picking areas in the day where you're intentional about self-regulation and practicing the skill of self-regulation will really help. So I'm gonna let Emily flip to the next slide. So what really is it? And really, it's being in control of your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. And this includes positively managing your negative thoughts. You know, people talk about, where some people are pessimists, some people are optimists, but we all work in that. Some things we're expecting to go well and some things we're expecting not to go well. And so we create thoughts around those. And so really this includes, how do we manage those? We all have them, but how do we manage those? Also, being able to wait and share is a big piece of that. And communicating your feelings so that you are being able to let people know how you feel, let people know what you're thinking, instead of lashing out, right? Instead of being a big behavior or big meltdown or big blow up. That's really what that means. Being able to put your thoughts and your words to other people to get your needs met. But in action, this is a really many-layered function, and it is complex and takes a lot of practice and work. So we'll flip to the next slide. This is what self-regulation does. It helps us create a positive sense of self. If we can control ourselves in positive ways, we can more easily make and keep friends. And so this is a really big social piece. Self-regulation skills really tie into these social skills for us. They also allow us to think about our consequences, right? Which also has to do with that social thing. If we can say, if I do A, then B will happen, and B being the consequence, good or bad, then we can have more control about what we decide and what choices we make and be responsible for those consequences. Overall, it increases our social behavior because we are able to do these things and have these connections. And so when we can regain control, we empower ourselves to reach out and make connections. The other piece of this is anger management also falls into this. And I think it's really important to note that anger and frustration are very normal experiences. When we're talking about anger management, we're not talking about let's regulate ourselves to be happy all the time. That's not what this is. It's let's regulate how we respond to that anger and that frustration in our lives. Because the fight or flight strategy, right, is there when we either we're gonna panic, we're going to be angry, but how do we manage that? And then finally, it helps us focus on our goals, because if we can control our negative thoughts positively through a mindset, when we hit a challenge or when we find a point of frustration, we're able to calm ourselves and then maintain focus to complete the goal to its completion. So next slide, what we can do about it. There's a lot that we can do about it. I have to say that today I'm only giving you a few, some ones that you can definitely do at home that will get you started. And I'm happy to start to talk about it more as we go on, because this is a really big one. But the key of all of this as a parent or as an adult that is working with children is that we ourselves are the co-regulators for our children. That basically, as our children grow, we need to infer their feelings and their thoughts, because they're not always going to give us that. And then we need to respond in a like way. So if our child is angry, but they're just throwing a toy, we need to say, you seem really frustrated because you can't complete that Lego building. How about if we go back and look at the directions again? Or how about if we take a break and walk away from it and go get a snack and come back to it later? So when we do that, we're giving the child some vocabulary around what they're feeling. And then we're also giving them a strategy. Walk away, get a snack, take a breather, look at the directions. Those are all now tools that they're putting into their toolbox that eventually they will do on their own, right? And that's the whole idea of co-regulation to self-regulation. We give them strategies. We start building that bank. And then instead, maybe the next time we say, what could you do? What are your strategies? What is your tool bank telling you to do? Do you want to take a deep breath? Do you want to go get a snack? Do you want to look at the directions? It also promotes a safe space, right? And it pays to build trust and connection, because we are going to have frustration. We are going to have anger. At home, our emotions do get really big. We hold them together at school because it's socially appropriate to hold it together. But when we come home, our kids might be a lot bigger in their emotions than they are at school. And so for us to be able to build that safe space of trust is really important, because we do need those kids to start expressing that. We don't want them holding it in all the time, because that's actually leading to a lot of stress and anxiety as well. So to go along with this, the second part of this is we really need to develop feeling word vocabularies for our kids. And I know this sounds like kind of silly, but from beginning, I work with K-8 kids, kindergartners all the way to 8th grade. When I ask feelings, if I ever look at feelings, I get the same: sad, mad, happy, right? And everything falls into sad, mad, happy, maybe scared, right? Those 4 words. But there's so many more words to describe mad. Maybe I'm just frustrated. Maybe I'm annoyed. Maybe I'm bothered, right? There's so many things that might be sad. Maybe I'm worried. Maybe I'm ashamed. Maybe I'm feeling guilty. Maybe I am feeling just kind of blah. I know I call that like sick, that blah feeling. I think bored also falls into sad a lot for kids, but they don't have that. I was having a description talk with my own children, and they're 12. And we were talking about not feeling trustworthy of the source. And they were using the wrong language. And we finally came to the fact that they were wary. They were wary. They had this feeling of being wary of what was going on. And they had no idea what that word was. And so just getting that vocabulary for our children allows us to then match the strategy, right? If we're annoyed, we're going to do something different. We might just take a deep breath or go get a snack. If we're furious, we're going to need to do something else. And so we really need to get that vocabulary so that their tools match the level that they're feeling. So next slide. This is another big one that is really great for home-based. And this is hard as a parent. I'm guilty of this myself. We're all nodding our heads. Practicing patience, delaying gratification. So a big thing of this is you're in the middle of making dinner. You've got 2 things on the stove. You are chopping something else to get it in, and you have to get it all done within 30 minutes because everybody's starving. And your kids are asking for something that they can't reach, or they're asking you to help them with a coloring paper that they're working on. It is absolutely okay and actually vital to say to your kids, do you see what I'm doing right now? I'm really busy. I will help you as soon as I am done with X, Y, and Z. And it's making your child look at you to see, oh my gosh, she really does have things going on. Or yes, there's really things going on in the house, right? And we're not talking about emergencies here. I mean, right, if we're bleeding, if we're barf, right, that's a whole new situation. But they don't need it right then. We live in a society where instant gratification is rampant. We can get information anywhere we want, how quick we want. We don't have to wait anymore. And so this is a skill we're really finding is lacking because our kids are so used to getting what they want when they need it. And we live so quickly and our lives are so fast paced that it is really easy for me to take that one finger that I have free and throw that thing down at the kid so that I can then go back to what I'm doing. And so again, this is one of those things we know we can't do all the time, but if there's those moments in time when you can say, hey, look at me, I'm busy, I'll get to you when I can. That's huge. Also taking turns. So going back to playing games is huge. Games are really there as learning tools. You know, we talk about family game night. It's really key, not just for connection, but actually for executive functioning skills. You have to learn to wait your turn. You have to learn that maybe you've got what you want to do, but the player then takes over your turn and now you've got to readjust what you're doing. That's learning to help you deal with that patience and that regulating of, oh, my plan didn't go as I thought it was going to do. I have to readjust. And it's kind of in a safe place. The other thing, and this is huge, I find, as our children actually get older, this practice asking for help. And it happens in my own house, and I'm watching it happen on a K-8 school. Kindergartners have no problem saying, I need help. I want, I need, I'm having a hard time with this. Can you help me? As our children get older, that asking for help really starts to disappear. And a lot of what it is as the tasks become more complex and our expectations of our children become more complex, they don't know what they need help with. And so it's easier to say nothing than it is to try to say what I need help with. And so this is a big place that parents can model and that you can actually practice at home and giving that language. And a lot of times I'll get kids, I need help with what? I don't know. And so taking that time to break down, what do you mean I don't know? If this is math homework, do you know what page you're working on? Okay, so you don't need help with that. Do you know what numbers you're supposed to be doing? Like what problems? Okay, you don't need help with that. Oh, you get how to add fractions. You don't get how to subtract fractions. That's where you need help. So we took this, I don't know, into something really specific. And so really working with your kids to do that and giving them that language. I'm struggling with, can we talk later? I'm working hard, but I'm still not understanding this part. I'm not sure what I need. Can we talk? So even giving that language, I don't know what's wrong. I need to talk this out. And can maybe you give me some advice on? And I picked these ones because they are more kind of at a middle school level. We can adapt these for kind of lower grades, but I did appreciate the fact that we recognize that our adolescents and our preteens and teens are still working on these executive functioning skills. So next slide. So now this is the one that's easier said than done. The teach and model. And I say teach and model because as adults, this is still something that we're working on in our self-regulation skills. Taking the time to stop, calm ourselves, and then think through. This really comes into play when we are talking about that kind of fight or flight part that I was talking about earlier, that jump to anger or jump to anxious and stress. Because if we can use this strategy, we get a chance to challenge those negative thoughts. So we're going to stop our thoughts or stop what we're doing, physically stop, and then self-talk through this. So this is a part, and I know both Emily and Mike talked about self-talk. And so self-talk can happen in two ways, right? It can literally happen in your head where no one knows what's going on, or it can happen quietly out loud. I don't know about you. I sometimes find myself talking to myself, and that's my self-talk. That's how it comes out for me. So I'm going to physically or have a stop sign posted in my house, or I'm going to teach my child to visualize a stop sign in their mind. And I'm going to then use one of the calming strategies that maybe we've talked about in our co-regulation times. Maybe I'm going to learn to take a figure 8 breath. And these are some resources we'll have for you at the end with some strategies for doing this. Maybe I'm going to listen to music. Maybe I'm going to use my Headspace app. Maybe I'm going to do some balloon breathing for those of you that have Soul Shop in your programs at school. Maybe I'm going to do some isometrics, which are just those kind of quiet exercises where you're pushing, against things, you're pushing against walls to get your body kind of recalibrated. Maybe I'm a quiet spot person, or maybe I'm going to picture myself sitting on a beach with not a worry in the world, right? Maybe that's my calming strategy. And then once I've gotten that, I can challenge my thought. Why am I thinking this way? Is my thought helpful? Is it realistic? Is it going to get me what I need? And so a lot of these negative thoughts, it becomes that I'm always bad at this. This is terrible. This will never work. Those are exaggerations of thoughts. They really aren't rational in their thinking. But I can't start challenging those until I'm in a space where I'm calm enough to do that. And this is something we need to explicitly teach our kids. This does not happen naturally. We don't go through our day. Ask yourself, do you do that in your day? We don't. And something that really we have to teach our kids to do. I spend a lot of time in my counseling time with students teaching this exact strategy, because really no one has taken the time to think about this and put this into practice for them. Through no fault of our own, we just make these assumptions that they can do this. It also allows us to see the size of the problem. You can find these all over the internet. I picked up this one today about the size of my problem. So like this one is a level 1, it's a glitch. 2 is a little problem. 3 is a medium problem. 4 is a big problem. And 5 is an emergency problem. And if you look, there's some feeling words that match those. That's important. That goes back to that vocabulary piece. Now we can deal with it. If you can truly be able to look at the size of your problem, I don't know what my homework assignment is tonight. That is not a level 5 problem. Right? We're going to survive this. We're going to get through this. We have strategies to go find those out. That's, I left my pencil, in the car. That's not a reason for you to be on the ground, rolling around, screaming. And letting your child know that we need to match the reaction to the problem. And I think if we can have those conversations with our kids start realizing, oh yeah, that might be an overreaction. And that's self-regulation. So next slide.
Thank you, Dana.
We are, here's a couple quick more that you can do. Being explicit in your expectations, setting goals. This is also a big one. This constructive criticism. It's an idea of reframing our mistakes as a learning opportunity. Our kids naturally aren't great, don't take criticism well. None of us do. I don't like it. It's not something that I'm, happy to hear. But if you can reframe it as, hey, this is what went well. Have you considered? Can we next time try? Have you thought about? By being open-ended and giving them that space to reflect, then that constructive criticism becomes more of a buy-in for them. Instead of, you did that wrong. You didn't do that right. What's wrong with you? I know that, and it's, in our language, right? We're in a rush, and sometimes that stuff comes out. But being really purposeful about how we give criticism helps our children learn to take it. Next slide. All right, we're gonna move on to flexibility, much quicker than self-regulation, let me tell you that. So what this really means is that it's being cognitively flexible, right? We're thinking of things from new perspectives, we're learning new ways of doing something, and we're adapting in new situations, right? So there's been a lot of change this year, right? Flexibility, cognitive flexibility has been a huge piece of our everyday life. We do some of it well and some of it not so well, right? So this looks like learning new strategies, like we're talking about today, calming ourselves, transitioning from one task to another. So, hey, you're getting yourself ready for school. Oh, now we got to get in the car to go to school. That's a transition. Hey, you're doing your homework, dinner's ready in 10 minutes. That's a transition. So knowing that all through our day, we have tons of transitions in a day. It's a lot to ask of our kids. So we'll talk about some ways that you can help prepare them for that. Being solution focused, being creative, and this is my favorite, taking risks and trying new things. Without that fear of failure, we are fail, right? But we don't want that fear of it. Failure is a part of our world. It's how we learn, it's how we grow. And we really need to start kind of embracing that idea. So next slide. So here's some things that you can do. Fun things at home for transitions and adapting to new situations. Trying new things, trying new foods, going on a new walking trail, playing new games at your house, finding new TV shows, joining a club, doing a new sport, finding a new community service place, something that you can do that's out of your routine and out of your norm. Doing it as a family creates a safety net around that so that we're all doing it together. We're not just asking our kid to go out and do it. So this is a really great way to build some family connection too. Giving choice. I preface this a little bit because at the end of the day, we are the guardians, right? We are the adults in this situation. And so there are times where we are not going to be able to give choice, and that's okay. Sometimes we are doing things for the betterment of our children, even if they don't see it. And so when I talk about choice, I really talk about things that you can follow through with. So maybe creating a new schedule at your house with more input from them. What are you willing to let them decide? Maybe they decide the time of day they do their chores. Maybe you decide the time of day that you are, having them walk their dog or playtime. Maybe they get to put their playtime right after school and they do their homework later. So giving them some input into how their day goes, mixing it up, having small changes in your routine. Like today, I need you to take the dog out for a walk instead of doing your homework first. It's those little small changes so they don't get so set in their ways. Just mixing it up little bits. This is also something that's important, is that acknowledging the stress that may be happening, but naming it. So sometimes we're disappointed by something that happens. Sometimes we don't like the change that's happening. Sometimes we're frustrated by it. Sometimes we're afraid of it, right? So being honest with that is really, really important. Flexibility comes with all those feelings. And instead of we just say, you'll be fine, that kind of negates their feelings. So addressing it and talking about it and making a plan around that is really important. A lot of us are transitioning back to school in different ways. We're going to these half-day schedules. There's a lot of, or for our middle school, 2 full days on and then days where you're home. It's new. Your kids are going to go through a range of emotions with that. And so just talking about that and what is your plan for the day? How are you going to get through that day? It's really important to be explicit about those. And then this is hard for a lot of us as adults as well, but being okay with uncertainty. This is a huge one that I model a lot in my house. I do a lot of think alouds. I don't know when, especially this pandemic has given a lot of uncertainty, right? I don't know when we're going to be able to do this activity. I don't know when we're going to be able to do this, but here's how I'm thinking about it, right? I'm realizing that here's maybe something that we can do instead. I know it doesn't take the place of it, but it helps us get out and be active, or it helps us do this. And I actually model that out loud with my kids so they can see me doing it. So they can see that life goes on. It is uncertain, but we will survive it and we will get through it. And it may not be our favorite thing that we do, but it may be an unpreferred task, but we're going to get through that task and then we move on to the next thing. Next slide. Here's some things for new perspectives and new ways of doing things. Staying solution focused is really big. We talked earlier about that negative thought patterns. And so instead of focusing on that, what went wrong, how bad it is, brainstorming different ways to solve a problem. And maybe it's something simple that you're starting with. Maybe it's something non-personal. Maybe it is, I ran out of sugar. What are my options to fix that? Like I can run to the store, I can ask a friend, I can run over to the neighbors, I can maybe make the cookies tomorrow instead. All of those things, right? That is being flexible and problem solving instead of saying, oh, I can't believe I'm so dumb. I left that sugar. Like, why did I not pick that up at the store? Right? Avoiding those kind of traps that you'll hear kids get into. Making up new rules to familiar games. So I love, instead of Uno, it's Dos. When you got 2 cards left. Crazy 10s to crazy 8s. Tag your tagger, just changing it up. letting them make up new rules and making them teach you those new rules to a game so that they have to think in a new and creative way. Sharing jokes. This is a really silly one, but really fun. Jokes often play with word meanings and puns, and so they make our brain have to adapt. So when we think cool is a cucumber, if you were to take that literally, that's the weirdest thing you've ever heard. But if you are to say that as a mean of being like, oh, that cool is a cucumber, teaching those kids that those idioms and that wordplay actually creates cognitive flexibility. This is also fun, is allowing for some mess. This is something I personally work really hard on. I'm not great with mess. And so for me as an adult, I'm having to learn my own boundaries with this. But cupcake wars, that's a huge thing in the middle school world right now. Kids are loving like this. They're watching all these like cooking shows and they're becoming judges. And so having something like that, which it kind of makes a mess, but you got to be creative. You can't just make it out of the box. Creating musical instruments, building animal habitats. I have a group of kids here that love nature. They we're surrounded by open space in their backyard. They all kind of critters. And so if you're okay with a critter, building a little habitat for your little friends that come to visit you in the night. Practicing empathy is huge. Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is promoting cognitive flexibility because we're having to think outside ourselves. Any opportunity that you can provide for your child to think outside themselves is a way that you're creating and letting them practice that cognitive flexibility. And again, I can't stress this enough, this self-talk piece, which we as counselors talk about a lot and is hard to put into practice. We understand that. But getting into this habit of self-check-ins, reiterating and finding your calming strategies like breathing, your growth mindset pieces, I can't do this yet. I'm getting better each day. Say these out loud for your kids to hear. It's a simple but hard thing to do. They need to see that we are still growing and we're still evolving humans as well, because that's what connects us. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Michael.
Hello, everyone. So we're at the last executive functioning skill we're going to talk about today. And as you can probably see, a lot of these skills are intertwined and there's common themes. And perseverance is one that kind of encapsulates all of them. So what is perseverance? I mean, it's really seeing something through to completion. It's having that grit and that stamina and looking at life as a marathon, not a sprint. Grit and perseverance are really, it's one of those intangible ones where it's hard to measure, like, why is someone able to persevere more than others? That's hard to really measure or find out. But one thing that we've touched on in all the previous slides that is tangible and is really directly related to perseverance is mindset, right? With having a growth mindset and having the belief that, the ability to learn is not fixed, that you can increase the ability to learn with effort is really what, helps with perseverance. And it helps with a lot, as you can see, with a lot of the other executive functioning skills. Next slide, please. So perseverance skills can help in so many different ways. So why is it important? Because it allows you to do your best, right? If you're seeing something and your child is seeing something through the end to completion, obviously they're going to see that completed project and it's going to, really reflect on their grades and the skills that they're learning. And it increases their self-esteem. They're really actually feeling good about themselves. I know I always do when I complete something all the way to completion, especially if it's a really challenging task. And right now, your children may not have all the skills to see things through completion. They might need some supports. And that's something that we need to work with them is how to, get support to see it through completion. But when they do, I think that really increases and builds upon their self-esteem. You also learn to deal with failure. We talked about that. Dana talked about that in the previous slides. And it's true. I know that, what's her name? Dr. Gweck, who does a lot of research and books on growth mindset. She did an interesting study where she found that just by simply having kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows, when they're presented with new challenges, it makes them actually adaptable to failure because they don't look at it as a permanent thing and they actually can fight through it. So it's really important that they know that if you fight through something, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. We all make mistakes. But if we fight through it and see it to completion, we're going to know that there's something to be gained and learned that way. And provides practice for positive life skills. Obviously, we know that perseverance helps in our daily lives. Going through the pandemic, it's just it's something that just helps us throughout. And I know I put a TED Talk resource that you guys can check out, where one of the psychologists and her team, they did some studies on why or how like kids and adults, all different people, how they were being successful, say in a spelling bee or graduating from a prestigious college or going to a career that is really, they were really successful at for a long period of time. And the one thing that they noticed that was above all, whether it be IQ or talent, was perseverance and grit. That really stood out as a factor of those people who were successful. And it just helps solidify, just as people really learn that skill of fighting through things till the very end, it just helps throughout your life and giving you those life skills. Next slide, please. So how can we help support your child through this? Or how can you help support your child through this? Well, connect to a person that they admire, to ways that they use perseverance in their life. I know for me, when I was growing up, I loved basketball, and that was my favorite sport. And Michael Jordan was one of the athletes I really looked up to. And I saw one of his old documentaries when I was younger. And, it said that he didn't make varsity as a freshman or even a sophomore, which this guy's arguably the best basketball player that's ever played, and didn't even make varsity in those 2 years. But he ended up making it because he didn't want to give up, and he persevered and had grit and determination. I mean, it also helped that he grew like 6 inches that summer, but he became the best. You asked any of his teammates, he had that work ethic. He never gave up. Not helped me. I played basketball and tried out for the basketball team, made it. And obviously I realized that I am vertically challenged. So I knew that with my perseverance, it probably would help in baseball, because that didn't really matter as much with my height. So I went that route. But you can also brainstorm challenging events in your child's life and have them come up with the solutions to overcome them and see it through. It's always good when your child is the one and who formulates those answers. You might have to guide them and give them options, but when they formulate solutions to their own problems, then they have ownership to it, and it really resonates a lot more. And again, the big theme is working on growth mindset, really staying away from that fixed mindset that they can't do something or I'm not good enough, and really opening up the strategies of knowing that it can be learned and it can be gained, and you can get the support to get there. Help them see project through completion. Obviously, they do need support sometimes, and they might need you to see it through completion. And when they see that finished project, maybe they'll be more susceptible to really try it on their own the next time. And I think, as Dana was talking about with flexibility, trying new things, it's a big thing. And in so many aspects of life, right? When you try new things, you're gaining a bigger repertoire. You're also learning different skills. You're failing at times, but you also get to learn, which goes into the next way to help them, is find things that they're interested in. It helps them find out what you're interested in, what is that your child wants to do and is interested in. And if they are interested in something, obviously they're probably going to see it more through completion than if they're not. Schoolwork, sometimes they may not, but if they find an interesting subject for like a project, that might help them see it through completion. And the last two, practice and exercise, definitely help with perseverance. As you practice, you're going to get better and you're going to feel more confident. And exercising itself, besides releasing endorphins and making you feel better about doing things, and especially when you have big projects, when we exercise, we're setting goals for ourselves. Whether I'm going to run 2 miles today, or I'm going to try to bench press 155 pounds. I'm not there yet. I might need to get there, but I'm setting goals, and that's what exercise does, and it really helps with perseverance. So I think that, no, you're great. I think that concludes our strategies.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. Mr. Constantine and I and Mrs. Wagner put a few different resources here on these last 2 pages. feel free to check them out. On my slides, it was the survey and the different types of learning styles and ways to support your child. This will conclude our presentation, but we will stay on for answering questions that are in the chat. So we're going to stop recording to allow confidentiality, but just FYI, this will be posted